We are now recording. So, can you tell me, have you seen a lot of my typing videos before?
I have actually not watched any of the typing videos. I have watched some of the live stream and some of the smaller uh, educational segments or review segments, but
Okay, cool. Fantastic. All right, well, let me ask you to begin with if you can tell me about this past Christmas. What do you remember about this past Christmas?
okay. It was kind of a weird Christmas. Last September, my aunt, who was a very close family member to me, unexpectedly died. And then about a month and a half after that, my most recent partner, we were kind of on a break, but they committed suicide. And so this last Christmas, I didn't go anywhere. I didn't see anyone. And that was a different kind of Christmas than any other one I've had before. It was a quiet, not terrible. It was home with the cat, but it was quiet and sad and a bit forlorn.
Sorry to hear that.
It's been a rough ride.
Yeah, yeah. That's rough. Let me not get sort of sidetracked by that too much. Okay, so can you tell me what you did yesterday in terms of a sequence of events? Like, I got up, I went to the store, I bought some oatmeal, I went back home, I blah blah blah, like that.
Probably because it was a Monday. Yeah, I can figure that out. It was a Monday. So I got up, I worked. It was a long day. After work, I didn't go anywhere, so I did some stuff around the house and in the garden, kind of tinkered about,
Um,
made dinner.
what can you talk to me about what kind of media you consume? Like, besides YouTube videos, do you like to watch more like scripted shows or documentaries or like?
I used to really enjoy documentaries a lot. I rarely watch anything scripted. I mean, most of what I consume visually is YouTube type stuff these days, primarily. I mean, I guess some of it is scripted, um, but it's more like, uh, I guess, educational stuff.
Psychology, philosophy stuff, economics.
Yeah, that stuff. Also, I nerd pretty hard on tarot and spirituality and sort of esoteric kind of mysticism stuff.
Are you familiar with Winston's mom from the channel?
With who?
Winston's mom.
Mm-mm.
You remind me a lot of her.
Oh,
even your voice sounds the same. Um,
interesting.
okay. Let's see. All right. So, talk to me about your taste in music.
I'm sorry, I said that again.
What's your taste in music like?
It's a little bit all over the place. I like a lot of hip hop and rap, but I also am kind of into singer songwriter stuff, depending on the artist. And I listen to a fair amount of like meditation, classical, or shamanic journeying type drum beats.
Hmm. So, if I told you that yesterday, or maybe it was 2 days ago, uh, Rachel had got up and was saying she was feeling fussy because she had pulled some tarot cards the night before about us and our compatibility, and she wasn't getting the results she wanted. Now, the next morning, I said, "Well, look, Rachel, I'll just pull one for us." And I pulled out the Empress card. Now, I want you to explain to me, well, what does the Empress card mean in terms of our compatibility, so I can see how you explain tarot.
Mm. Yeah, well, I mean, I'd say there's a couple of different things that the Empress might be trying to tell you. She might, instead of trying to tell you directly about your relationship with Rachel, that card might actually just be a reaction and further clarification based on your pulling a card about your relationship and the cards that Rachel pulled. So I'd say from that context, I mean, archetypally, she's just the earth mama and so nurturing and so full of love and so abundant. So I would say in that context, it speaks of your love and in the abundance of your feelings and care for Rachel.
Yeah, I'm not one to worry about. Like, her compatibility for me is established by our SI. My experience, or my day in and day out experiences, were constantly nonstop compatible. So why would you even ask the question? You know.
Right. Yeah.
But that's just
because
NI versus SI. You know.
yeah. You can't not ask the questions. I mean, honestly, that sometimes it seems like the things that I know are the things that I struggle against the most and constantly re-ask.
Okay. So do you think you're more likely to do that when your experience is contradicting your understanding, or vice versa?
I mean, at this point, it's become a part of my spiritual practice, so it's something that I sort of just do regularly, kind of regardless. But certainly, the lens with which I filter that information through is affected by where I'm standing at that point in time. Like, by which I mean to say that if I was in a great mood one day and pulled one card, and was in a terrible mood the next day and pulled that exact same card, then even though it's the same card, I would probably interpret it differently.
Yeah, that's very much the case. And I think that that factor right there is really what plays into what questions Rachel's asking. Is like basically her serotonin levels, you know.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
okay, so now you just talking to you right off the bat. Let me tell you that you talk like Alpha Quadra. You talk like an NTP probably, but that's not determinant or anything. But even though my initial thought on you was NI, you don't. Well, let's see. Can you tell me a story about two rabbits and a wolf who are stuck at the mall overnight together?
Two rabbits and a wolf. Oh, well, stuck at the mall.
They got locked in by accident.
I don't feel like this really is my forte, but we'll give it a whack. Sure. Okay, so I'm going to assume that they were all there together to begin with. And so they spent that time. I'm also going to assume that they are, because they got looked in by accident, that implies maybe that they're childlike or irresponsible in a way. So we're going to assume, for the context of the story, that they are friends and they are young rabbits and a young wolf. And I would say they spent most of their time shredding around going all of the places they weren't supposed to be when all of the adults and all of the humans were around, and wreaking havoc and having the freaking time of their life.
Um, I think it's interesting that you first sort of walked through what was reasonable deductions from the little bits of information I gave you. I thought that was interesting. Interesting approach. Um, okay. If you're gonna watch a video that either does one of two things, provides you some new ideas, new concepts or whatever that you've not heard before that you think are interesting, but it's kind of haphazard, or it's a video that isn't telling you anything new, but it's telling you in a really nice, concise, neat package. Which video do you prefer?
I'd like to be the kind of person who prefers the first, but in reality, I am very much the kind of person who prefers the second.
Right. Okay. Um, what about pop songs? Do you have an
Mm.
opinion about what makes a pop song good or bad?
No. And where I overlap with pop that's relevant right exactly now is kind of by chance and sort of chaotic when it happens. So I don't even know if what I like other people would consider popular, or I don't know if what other people consider popular is what I like because I'm a little checked out.
Right. Okay. Um. Okay. So let me ask some TI questions. See how those go. If some crabs have pinchers, and all things that have pinchers are Dobermans, can we conclude that some crabs are necessarily Dobermans?
I'm sorry.
If some crabs have pinchers,
Hmm.
and all things that have pinchers are Dobermans, can we conclude that some crabs are Dobermans?
Yes.
Okay. If only people from Sweden shop at the mall, and I'm shopping at the mall, can we conclude that I'm from Sweden?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me who my mother's, father's, wife's, only daughter's husband is in relation to me?
With a few minutes and perhaps a piece of paper and a pencil, yes, but I've already completely forgotten what you said
Okay,
past
let me
you.
repeat it. Okay, let me repeat it. I'm talking about my mother's, father's, wife's, only daughter's husband in relation to me.
Father.
Yes, correct. Okay. Um, do people? Are you somebody that people approach? Like, let's say I'm lost in a store and I'm looking around for somebody to help me. There's no employees around, and so I'm gonna go approach some stranger and ask them a question about the store. Are you somebody who might get approached, or are you somebody people go, not her, I'll approach somebody else?
Mm, that's a great question. Um, I'm going to have to complicate it a little. Sorry. Uh, Prior to cutting my hair short and dressing more masculinely, yes. Um, since then, it's a little bit of a crapshoot. And since COVID and face masks, it's a little bit more of a crapshoot.
That's true.
I am often one who will accidentally catch somebody's eye, even when I'm really trying not to, and smile in response, and people find me generally open and welcoming.
Okay. How are you?
Less so with the clothing, though.
Was that is that somewhat purposeful? Was that one of the desired outcomes of it?
No, it was just a surprise. There, I mean, honestly, it's there was no plan to this, which it was just a weird thing that happened. And it's been interesting because I was over 40 to just be an adult and so have like awareness of how people respond to me in different ways over a short period of time.
Mm, it's interesting.
Mm.
Okay. Uh, so, how are you feeling emotionally right now?
Pretty nervous. Like in the actual moment, pretty nervous. And in the larger arc of things, like in today, yesterday, this week, I mean, I shared a little bit about what happened last year, and honestly, it's been a really kind of rough ride. So I'd say overall, maybe I'm a little depressed and anxious, more so than usual.
And you talked about having a spiritual practice. Is that your go-to strategy for when you're feeling blue? Or do you have a different strategy for remedying your down periods?
Yeah, I'd say I'd like for it to be a go-to when I'm blue, but I think instead I go to a lot of other coping strategies. I smoke cigarettes, I smoke weed, occasionally I drink a little bit. I will be avoidant of things that need
I'm not
doing.
checking my email. I'm not checking my email.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
checking my
yeah, exactly. Mhm.
I suspect that has probably more to do with Enneagram stuff. I'm no expert on Enneagram, but I've come to see that seven-ish quality as being a seven thing more than a type thing.
Mm.
Although I do think Enneagram correlates pretty well with certain types sometimes, but not always. Like Rachel's a seven, but she's an INFJ. That's not necessarily typical for INFJs, I would think. But anyway.
Yeah, and I think my type has always been a 9.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, so I would be wrong then about that. What I was just speculating, because I was speculating that this procrastination escapist thing that you and I both share, what you're describing, I understand immediately, and I'm living it right now too. I'm like, it's like I had this thing that I was supposed to do earlier at 2 o'clock, but it was less. It's more casual, so I just ended up taking my nap, sleeping straight through it. And it's
Mm.
like, okay, well, I gotta be up by 4 because that's the actual thing I have to go do. But
Yeah, which that's also kind of a thing with nines, like the how they call them the sins or whatever. There's so much Christian language in it, it's weird, but the sin of the nines is basically like sloth, like going asleep to your own self for the sake of kind of maintaining the peace, and being the sort of a little bit outside rather than actively engaged in your life.
I see.
Yeah,
I get you.
I feel a little called
That's
out.
actually
Yeah.
an interesting distinction because I always associated my gluttony as having a component of sloth to it. I sort of see sloth as being a form of gluttony.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's gluttony of laziness.
Yeah, and just not wanting to be here-ness. Like, I mean, honestly, the journey to try and like recognize that I have a body and want to like take care of it and like the physical things in life and just not be in my own head and in fantasy land all the time. Like, that's my 40s so far. Trying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, it's still in her 30s. Rachel is at the the stage still where, I say, you want to slow down on those whippets there, Rachel? And she goes, eat, sleep, rave, repeat.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's, yeah, I don't know. It's weird trying to figure your own self out.
Okay. Let me, I'm starting to get a pretty good sense of, I think, what type you are. Let me ask some more questions that'll help me nail this down. So, can you, I've come to work at your house today, and I'm supposed to mow the lawn. But I've never mowed a lawn or used a lawnmower before. And you need to explain it to me. Can you explain it to me, please?
Okay.
What am I supposed to do? I don't know I don't know what to do.
Well, first you got to plug it in because it's electric.
You have an electric lawnmower?
And I do, yeah. I don't have very much grass. Um, and I would say also you want to try and remember to not go over the cord because that will immediately stop you in your tracks. So plug it in and turn it on, which I can't actually tell you how to do right this second. I'd have to look at it to tell you.
Okay.
And just mow it all down. I don't care if it's in a pattern.
Do you mow your lawn yourself?
Yeah.
And do you like to mow the lawn?
No. I try and rip out a little bit more grass every year and plant other things instead. I do like to garden.
Okay. Um, Is your house in approximately the same state of cleanliness, regardless of whether you have somebody coming over, or do you have to clean up before people come over?
Yeah. I I have a housemate right now, so it's a little bit different, but I've spent most of the past few years living by myself, and um, I definitely prefer to, I guess, mask in more than one way when people are coming into my space.
Right. um, do you cook for yourself?
I'm trying to be better about it, but I don't really like to.
You
But I
might
am
you
doing it more now.
you'll usually go get fast food or something.
No, I sometimes will just not eat, or will go and get prepped food from a store, from the, like, one of the fancier grocery stores, so it's not too terrible. Um, but yeah,
Okay.
I
When you do cook, do you pay attention to minimizing the mess you're making when you're cooking, or do you just figure I'll clean it all up after I'm done?
I mean, I try, because I also don't really do enjoy doing dishes, and I don't have a dishwasher.
Right.
Um, but I generally end up having more mess at the end. It sucks up a whole night. Just making dinner can suck up a whole freaking night, and I'm so resentful about it.
Okay, so what makes you scold yourself more? Would it be like wasting a whole night making dinner, or would it be accidentally hurting someone's feelings?
Accidentally hurting somebody's feelings.
Does that happen very often?
No, I'm very careful and deliberate.
I see. How do you think I'm feeling emotionally right now?
I don't know. You seem physically a little nervous and almost like you're not paying attention, but I also know you come across as really intelligent, so I'm not sure I trust it.
my body
Maybe
moves
it's
around.
bored.
My body just moves around a lot. It's SI4 thing. I'm always
Ah,
bouncing my knees. Often you catch NTPs do this a lot.
interesting.
It's a weird thing that NTPs do. I don't know why, but we just
Is
do
it
it.
comforting or?
Um, yeah, I guess it's kind of woomy
Mm,
and it's like also the other thing is I think NTPs are especially dominant in their hand. Like I'm right dominant, so I'm like super right dominant. So like I'll reach
mm.
over here to scratch my left ear like that. But
That's funny.
okay, so uh, let's see where I want to ask you. Okay, I'm going to ask you this question. There's a guy with a burrow and some pots and pans and a pickaxe, and he's heading up into the mountains. What is he?
Miner, a
Yeah, a
mountain
prospector.
person, a prospector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Um,
What was the first word that you said? Did you say a burrow?
yeah, a burrow.
Hmm, I don't
Oh,
even know what that is.
it's also known as a mule or an ass.
Oh, I was spelling it wrong in my head. Okay.
I guess that's a California thing, maybe because we're close to Mexico. We
Well, and also my legal last name is Burrow, Burrow, so I tend to think of it being spelled that way.
Oh,
So
I
I'm
see.
thinking of like a hole in the ground. And I was like, wait, he's got a burrow? And
No, not that kind of burrow. Okay.
oh, no,
I
I
mean, it
feel
could also
stupid.
be like a New York borough, right? It could be like
Yeah,
Queens or
exactly.
something, yeah.
Exactly.
Maybe I should just call it a mule next time. Okay. So, have you ever heard me ask the troll question before?
No.
All right, then. It's a story question. I'd like you to pretend you're the mayor of a Middle Ages town, okay?
Okay.
Mayor slash lord slash whatever. The autocrat. Um, and in this town, it's split in two by a river. And on one half of the river are your farms and your silos of grain and your livestock and stuff. On the other half of the river, are your townspeople and your merchants and stuff. Now, everything's going fine until one day, right before winter comes, your bridge washes out in a storm. And into your river comes to live a river troll. The river troll has a magical power that you can't do anything to stop him from using this magical power. And his magical power is this. Anytime a boat crosses the river with food in it, he can run up at like light speed. No matter how well it's hidden, he'll take 10% of the food in the boat and run away. And he calls it the troll tax. And it doesn't matter if you have one crust of bread in a boat, he'll take 10% of that. If you have a whole dead cow in a boat, he'll take 10% of that. Okay? So the thing is, you only have enough food stored up for everybody to survive the winter, just barely. And if you let this troll take the troll tax throughout the winter, then some people, like 10% of your people will starve. And you can't rebuild the bridge until spring because of the heavy snows. So, what do you do, Mayor? What do you do? Now, as a story question, you can ask me questions as the narrator. You can talk to other characters in the story if you want, and I'll take on their personality. And or you can just tell me what action you want to take, like a choose your own adventure kind of thing, but without any options.
I think it makes sense to start with seeing about talking directly to the troll and understanding more about his motivation, perhaps.
Okay, he says, you go to the riverbank, you talk to him, he says, hello, Mayor, how you doing? Pleasure to see you here. What would you like to know? Are you here to thank me for protecting you from the river sharks?
I am indeed grateful to be protected from the river sharks. I didn't even know that they existed, so thank you for your service.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know how dangerous they could be. I'm here to protect you, that's why I claim my 10% troll tax.
Okay, so let me ask you a question then. Since it is winter and since you are collecting this tax, I am now in a conundrum where approximately 10% of people who are relying on me to keep them safe are potentially going to die. And
sounds like you're a shitty mayor.
I know, and that's why I'm here talking to you, is to see if there's anything that we can do to try and work out a deal where, and even after perhaps we build the bridge next spring, we will continue to, if we can defer part of the tax over the winter, we will continue to pay you in the spring, even when your services are not required. And furthermore, I'd like to maybe put out there a feeler for having you continue to work for us in protecting us against the river sharks, even after the bridge is in place.
Okay. That's very good negotiating skills. That's very impressive. The thing is, a couple people have answered in a similar fashion before. I've asked this question a lot of the times, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's a fairly rare answer, but it's an answer that is, you can, by offering to, like, defer his, you can make that deal, basically. I've had, like, maybe one other person or two ever give me that answer, but the thing is, a lot of people will say, kill the troll, which is one thing you could try to do.
Oh my God, didn't even think of that.
But to be honest, what I consider to be the most intuitively correct answer is move the people, not the food.
Oh, Jesus Christ. It's so simple.
It's weird because when I came up with the question, I didn't know if it had any answers or not, right? And it just turned out to be a really good question to check what people think. Yours is a good intuitive answer as well. So I've had some people say, well, I guess we pick out the 10% that's least.
Well, yeah, totally.
It's the least valuable as people, and we just say you're the ones who are starving.
That's pretty cutthroat. I would say though that if you are going to move the people and not the food, you should probably clarify with the troll. If he considers a cow food, make sure he doesn't also consider people food.
That's why I specified a dead cow in the boat. He doesn't consider people food. There also aren't any river sharks.
Oh, so he's
He's
lying. Oh, that
lying.
bastard.
Yeah, he's a liar. You can't trust those trolls. Okay, so let me see. I'm feeling pretty confident about your type. It's a type though that I don't really have a polar test for. So let me check for. Talk to me about your relationship with extroverted sensing. So we've already discussed how you have a propensity sometimes to like procrastinate and or be escapist. Um, when you're being escapist and you're coming out of that period of time, what brings you out of it, or how does that look when you're like, okay, now I'm back to being, you know, go forth and prosper self rather than retreat and self medicate self.
God damn, that's a good question. Hmm. Hope.
Hope,
You
huh?
know, it's like
Describe
I
your
don't know.
behavior from a third party perspective. If they were just looking at you and not able to access your emotions, how would they describe your behavior as changing?
Um, from going from doing things that maybe are keeping me busy without actually being effective or productive to doing things that actually are effective or productive. And I'm trying to think of a good example. Um, like instead of spending an hour and a half cleaning my bedroom, I'm instead calling the fucking IRS
Oh,
or something
oh,
like
we have
that.
so much in common.
Yeah,
Yeah, for me, it's the state of
Um,
California.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I'm scared of the state of Oregon, so I've already called them. Yeah, I'm not really sure that it looks terribly different from the outside in the way that I uh, carry myself forth. I guess
do
it's
you
hard to say.
do you pay more? So interestingly, you said you spend less time cleaning your room, more time. So would you consider cleaning the room a way of being avoidant?
Sometimes, yes.
Okay. What?
It's kind of like addiction, where it's like it doesn't matter so much what the behavior is as to how the behavior is used.
Right. Yeah. Sure. You can be escapist with lots of different things.
Yep.
Um.
And I've done several.
Okay. So do you ever? So okay. How much? To what extent does getting yourself to eat food, drink more liquids, it take care of yourself more? To what extent does that predicate a a shift from escapist to productive?
I'm not 100% sure I'm understanding your question.
Well, okay. Basically, I'm trying to see if you have a similar experience to me or something more like Rachel here, which is, for me, getting back into like non-escapist mode usually starts with a bath.
Oh,
And I'm asking, is are there self-care things like that are the antecedent or the thing that comes before the um the shift in self?
yeah, I would say the it definitely. Hmm. God, honestly, I'm completely stumped. I'm feeling blind to even being able to witness myself here. I'm not.
Oh, well, I'm pushing on your SI, so that makes sense with where I'm thinking it probably is, which is probably eighth slot. Um, uh, your sixth slot answer. You answer the sixth slot thing. Let me ask you a couple, give you a couple more options for sixth slot, making you scold yourself more. So, what about if you you knew you had to pick up milk on the way home, but you forgot it, or you accidentally hurt someone's feelings?
Accidentally hurting somebody's feelings.
Okay. What about if somebody catches you being illogical, or you accidentally hurt someone's feelings?
Accidentally hurting someone's feelings.
Okay. Um, do you feel as though how susceptible are you to getting your feelings hurt?
Fairly susceptible.
What do you think's more important for the a partner to be in a relationship? Would it be more important for them to be fair to you or affirming in their words?
I would say fair, but I would also include as part of being fair is being affirming with one's words.
Okay. So,
Is that a having your cake and eating it too answer?
no, it's not really. I mean, I tend to agree with you. It's a very, it's a very FETI answer. So let me see where to go here with this line of questioning.
I think to go back now that it's had a few seconds to rumble around in the background regarding the question of, what motivates me to get out of what feels like not good mental place towards a more better mental place. It's usually a combination of, well, I guess in therapy, I do a lot of parts work. And so what I've come to think of them as the critical part and the complex part. They really go at it in my head until I either am like, I'm just going to die here or I'm going to make a change. And even if that change is getting up and going to do blah, 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 whatever.
Now,
So
by
it's,
critical, do you mean criticism critical, or do you mean critical as in
yeah,
necessary?
no, I mean critical as in the like like I know this is gonna sound like MBTI language,
Like
and I don't
critical
mean it that way,
parent
but like
stuff?
critical parent, like the inner critic. Yeah,
Okay, so when your inner critic is talking to you and it's not being particularly nice, what's it saying to you?
that I am just broken and wrong and unfixable in variations. I mean, that spins out in lots of different particulars, but that's the core messaging.
I see.
I mean, there is also some like, and this is where I think sometimes with the MBTI stuff, I get confused because it's hard to pick out the like childhood trauma from what's actually like my personality. Like, did it just exacerbate it? Did it twist it? I don't know. So it's hard sometimes to pick out what's me and what's a response to just stuff that happened when I was not cognitively developed enough to have a real actual sense of ego. So like my sense of ego is actually kind of a lot integrated with that of that inner critic.
Um, so when you are feeling loving towards yourself, how does what does that narrative sound like? Is it the narrative of an adult to a kid, or is it something else?
It is a little bit like that. It is a little bit of trying to, yeah, reparent the hurt inner child and doing so as a responsible parent. So it does sometimes take on the tone of voice of that being an adult talking to a child. It's okay, honey. You're all right.
Yeah.
I might not want this put on YouTube.
Well,
Pretty
like
vulnerable.
last night, I did some DMT, and I sat on the couch and I said, "Oh, Eric, you darling, hopeless little boy."
Yeah. How did that feel?
It was like I realized that I love myself better than INFJs, for example, love themselves. because of my SI. I know how to love myself. It involves cuddling up with pillows and stuff, and it's like that's not something that INFJs do as natively as I do.
Mm,
That's what occurred to me when I was
yeah.
on DMT last night.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes things come to you when you're on DMT that seem actually to withstand scrutiny after the fact, which is weird because I'm not a magical thinker when it comes to drugs at all. Like I'm like drugs don't have any purpose except to party. That's what drugs are for.
I've been curious about DMT. I've never done it.
It's a great thing to have around because it's an hour long experience max, but it feels longer than that. It's like the opposite of speed.
Mm,
It's like, oh my
interesting.
god, if only 5 minutes passed, it seems like I've been sitting here for like an hour or something.
I remember feeling that way about weed. I mean, it was a long, 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 long time ago, but I remember being like, "Oh, this fucks with my sense of time."
And now it doesn't do anything, huh?
No,
It doesn't do
it's really
anything.
kind of a
It's just
bore.
it's like a waste of time. Except you're just so like habituated to doing it.
I know. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
It's just like cigarettes,
Yeah.
basically. Except it's a different kind of cigarettes.
Yeah. And it's weird because so in 2020, I did this 12-month long clairvoyant training that was a meditation based, psychic meditation based work. And as part of the agreement, I had to not smoke weed. And it was the first time in a number of years I had not smoked weed. And I did give it up for most of that. I mean, honestly, after my aunt died and then after Nairi died, that last 2 months, I think weed was the only thing that kept me even remotely sane. Um, but it was weird because it was almost like in my mind, kind of like when I came out as gay. It felt like at the same time this massive seismic shift, and also like literally nothing actually really changed.
The thing is,
But then when I started smoking again, I started getting high again. It was kind of awesome.
the one change I noticed when I quit weed for a bit is I have very vivid dreams for a little while,
Mm.
and that um, then when I start smoking weed again, I don't really dream very much for a while, you know. But now it's like I don't know. I guess I dream. I don't really remember my dreams much, but I think I remember my dreams better if I don't smoke weed.
Yeah, I've heard other people say that same thing. I've kind of always had a hard time remembering them, except for the terrifying ones. Those stick with you. But
Do you have many nightmares?
for years, I had recurring post-apocalyptic type nightmares for most of my teens and 20s.
Huh.
Um, I don't have them. It seems to come back sometimes when I'm really stressed. I did have a series of sleepless nights this past winter, but
Talk to me about your
not,
sleeping in general. Like, do you go to sleep at the same time, wake up at the same time, and also do
no.
you have a go to sleep hygiene thing? And which basically I mean, like things you do to get yourself ready for bed and yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't go to bed or wake up at the same time every day. I mean, I wake up at the same times every day if it's a work day because I work at the same time when I work. But um, no, it's never the same time. I always short myself on sleep. I don't sleep. I don't have a hard time falling asleep, but I almost never stay asleep. Um, and yeah, in the sort of nighttime ritual, I smoke a cigarette, I brush my teeth, I pee, I drink water, put on chapstick.
Okay, so when you're actually lying down, do you need
Hmm.
it to be quiet? Do you like to have some talking thing going on in the background? Do you like white noise like an air conditioner? Do you need it dark or is a little which is more annoying to you, sound or light? Those questions.
If hmm, it used to be that there were more sounds that annoyed me. And I kind of like wanted, like when I was much younger, I really wanted like the TV on and to like fall asleep to listen to people talking. But that has really changed as I've gotten older. And now it doesn't really matter. I'd say maybe light is the thing that is hardest. Sometimes if I nap during the day, I will sometimes pull on like a stocking cap and pull it down over my eyes a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, some nights I go to sleep listening to meditation. Some nights I go to sleep just with it quiet. Doesn't really seem to matter.
I see. Okay. Well, based on all the results here, I don't see anything inconsistent with INFJ. And I see a lot of stuff consistent with INFJ. And your TI seems third. Your FI seems sixth. It tests sixth. Your TI tests about third. I mean, third's a tricky spot to test. Like 3, 4, 8, 6, they can all kind of test similarly. So that's a tricky one to test, but it's not inconsistent. Your test results with INFJ. TE sounded INFJ-ish. Your explanation of how to mow the lawn was very poor.
I'll remember that if in case I ever have to have anybody do it for me.
Your relationship with SI sounds very much like Rachel's relationship with SI. For Rachel, the going to sleep thing is more of a problem even than for most INFJs. So it's like, but she has what I would consider to be a sleep disorder, which is bipolar mania. It's primarily a sleep disorder because if people can't go to sleep for like days at a time, they go crazy, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
But she's got that problem fixed. Now she sleeps really well because of the combination of drugs she's on, and it's but even even that, it's like for her at least, and tell me if this resonates with you as well. She's very aware of the other person if there's somebody sleeping with her or in the room with her.
Yeah, like it's funny, and that is very validating to hear that because like one of the things I've noticed, so I've lived alone the last few years, but before that I was engaged, and my partner Lisa and I lived together and slept together, and she had a stepdaughter. And just having anybody in my space, and I've kind of noticed it again after living alone for a few years, and I've had a housemate the last like 2 months, that I can't shut off an awareness of another person in my like general area, which makes it really hard just to exist. Like,
well, yeah, Rachel often sleeps on the floor because she's concerned that her rolling around is bothering
impacting
me.
you. Yeah, of course. Yep. Yep.
So I go, well, it's not at all, but because the thing is, I frequently try to go to sleep when I'm not tired enough. And so I often get into bed and then 15 minutes later get up for another hour. And get into bed and then fail again and get up for another hour. This is when I'm normal Eric, like I am right now. I'm not on amphetamines, and I'm not coming off of them either. Mm-hmm. So it's like I'm my normal ADHD self, or whatever you want to call it, but it makes it so that I think I'm sleepy, and then I go lie down, and then I'm not, and it's really annoying. So it's like it has nothing to do with her, but she is going to make all these connections that don't exist anyway, because she's operating from an NI perspective, whereas I'm operating from an SI perspective, and I'm going, will you stop being so silly about that? There's no reason to worry about it, But I get it, because I'm FE as well, and I'm also aware of the fact that she's not sleeping well yet because she's aware of the fact that I'm still awake.
Exactly. It's like the fucking gift of the Magi, but like terrible.
That's our relationship, okay? Is we spent the whole first year plus playing Gifts of the Magi, trying to give each other things we don't want. It's like, well, can I give you this? Well, I don't want that.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. So
I love it.
That's ENTP, INFJ, and of course, eventually we sort of figured this out that we need to apply more of a platinum rules kind of FE, which says be aware of the distinct nature of the person that you're being good to, rather than trying to push a universal being good to onto somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Eh,
I love that.
yeah. I mean, well now we don't have that kind of problem so much anymore, where we're just talking past each other. Like we used to talk past each other a lot, and it doesn't
Yep.
really happen anymore.
That's awesome. I feel like that's where most people spend a lot of time in general, is just we're often talking past one another in our relationships. Yeah.
Yeah, or in not relationships, or in typology community. I was like, I had this conversation with rational typology the other day, so-called rational typology. Boy, you want to talk about not being able to communicate at all? It was crazy. It's like the guy's using words fundamentally differently than I'm using them, such that he
Ah,
thinks they're for purposes that I don't think they're for, and vice versa.
right, right, right.
Um,
That's frustrating. I mean, if you're not using the same language, then yeah, you can't have effective communication.
right. And if you don't think that words are primarily definitional matters, but rather matters of expressing yourself first and what they mean second, then you and I are going to have a hard time having a conversation about something that I consider to be a sort of matter of logical parsing. If they consider it a matter of personal expression, we're really not going to be able to communicate, and we're
Right,
going to
right,
clash a
right,
lot.
right.
So, did you come into this thinking you were an INFJ?
I did actually.
You were
Um,
right.
yeah. I always doubt it though. And I think that's partially the MBTI community's fault and partially
Yeah.
just my own baggage.
No, it's not just your own baggage. It's every INFJ who's a real INFJ has this problem of saying, do I want to say what my type is in the typology community? Because if I say I'm an INFJ, everybody's going to say, no, you're not. No, you're not. Before they
Yeah.
even know a thing about me, they're going to say, no, you're not. No, you're not. Because nobody gets to be an INFJ because it's the type people want to be. So therefore, it's not possible for you to be one because you want to be one or something. It's this horribly illogical double bind
Gotcha.
contradiction that people put INFJs in, right?
Yeah.
Which is a lot of times why they come to me to get typed, because then they don't have to say I'm an FJ. They can say Eric says I'm an INFJ.
Just pass the buck right along.
and I say at the end of the day, I'm like, listen, I am your MBTI tax guy. So if the MBTI IRS audits you, I'll be there at that audit saying, no, she is an INFJ, and here's why. And you can always point to this typing session as well. The thing is, people, of course, everybody wants to talk out their ass and say meow, 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 based on what? It's like the people who watch this whole video and comment and say, I don't think she's an INFJ, there'll be very, very few, if any,
Mm,
because it's like it's really hard to you can make the case that you're not something a lot more easily than you can make the case that you're something else. In other words, it's very
right.
difficult for anybody to successfully make the case that you're something other than an INFJ. But it will always be easy for idiots to cherry pick single pieces of data and say, well, this is inconsistent with INFJ as I understand it, therefore you're not one. So it's like when
Right.
people take that approach to arguing, it's just, I've had to learn and continuing to try to learn, it's not even worth my time to respond to them because they're not good thinkers.
Yeah. Oh, good for boundaries. That sounds like boundaries. Something else that I struggle with.
Oh, I struggle with it too because being an EHP means when people put shit on the external metaphysical field that's wrong, I feel this inherent responsibility to address it, to say the correct thing instead. It's just it's
Yeah.
it's like this inherent drive in me. But of course, it makes you very button pushable, right?
Right, right, right. Yeah. So do people come at you a lot?
Yeah, all the time. All the time. Somebody put up that the rational typology people put up a 45-minute video dissing me today, telling me saying how intellectually bankrupt I was.
That's mean.
I-
I mean,
It's not
like,
it's not mean. It's consistent with their use of language, which is to say, what happened was I said to him, like, okay, so where do we disagree here, apparently? Well, my position is that TI links strongly to conditional reasoning and conditional logic. And he began by saying he didn't think there was really any difference between conditional reasoning and causality. And I was like, oh boy, we've got a problem here. And as we proceeded along, I said at the end, I'm like, okay, so how do you falsify your so-called system then? And he's like, well, I'm not sure if it is falsifiable. And I'm like, okay, I don't have time for this remedial thinking class. And he said, what does that mean? So I was like, okay, I'm done with this conversation. I spent 30 minutes talking to people.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah. I watched, I think I watched one of their videos and the audio was so poor. Um, I didn't, I don't even really know anything about them or like what they're trying to put forth is it a whole theory that they're trying to put forth out there?
I don't know. Apparently, I haven't even watched any of their videos. But I just talked to the guy for 30 minutes. So um, the thing is, all I'd heard was somebody say to me, like in a live stream, well, these people said meow. And I said
Uh,
at the end of one of my videos, well, and meow, 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 and included rational typology is wrong when they say meow or whatever, right? So then they wanted to talk to me. I said, fine. And they told me they were gonna. And they like the guy like promised up and down, like, oh, definitely we'll send you the video recording because it turned out to record it on what do they call that, Zoom. It's a pain in the ass. You gotta run Zoom in a sandbox. I didn't want to spend all the time setting that up, and they insisted on using Zoom, right, so that they could record it, but I couldn't. And so then they didn't send me the video.
oh, no way.
These
Oh,
people.
that's not cool. That's
Yeah.
not cool.
So anyway, that's irrelevant to your typing. But
But interesting, and thank you for sharing.
do you have any questions, things you'd like me to explain or talk about while we have a few minutes left?
Yeah, I guess I'd really just ask, like, in your professional opinion, because there seems to be a lot of different theories out there, is like if one were going to try and put one's effort towards a particular like place of like trying to find more balance and take the stuff that's bring just life in general more into balance, where should I be putting my focus on? Or is it not worth putting my focus anywhere?
Well, I'm of the mindset that 2, 3, and 4. I mean 3 and 4 really, but it, like 2, 3, and 4 will always grow more robust over the course of your life, or the opposite. You're gonna
Hmm.
go like you could devolve instead of evolve, but I don't think you're somebody who's devolving. So
Thank you.
yeah. So the thing is, it's like your forethought will get better, sort of, but what that means is just the scope of your mistakes will get less big. So
Mm.
when the corollary for me with SI is when I was a teenager or something, I used to be like, "Oh, we're going on a 5 mile hike. Sure, I'll just get up, not have any breakfast, not bring any water, just wear some flip flops and think I'm gonna go do this thing, and then realize like partway through that I'm dying from starvation and thirst, right?" So I don't make quite such big SI mistakes nowadays. They're much
Right.
smaller in terms of scale, I guess I should say, instead of scope, but in terms of scale. But I still make SI mistakes. It's still an area of struggle for me. I still have to, when I'm trying to. I mean, it's so difficult applying will in general, right? It seems so much like a matter of mood, not a matter of will, to me, most of the
Yeah.
time, or a matter of circumstance. It's either a matter of will, it's either a matter of circumstance, mood, or will, and it very rarely seems the third.
Yeah. Yeah, that the mood one especially. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
That makes
yeah, I have a song called "It's a Matter of Mood," which is basically that's the point of it, the message of it, which is it's a matter of mood as much as a matter of will, and the things
yeah.
I do and the direction I'm pointing still seem a part of me, though departedly, and I wonder if I'll ever see them again.
Mm, it's a great question.
That's how it
But like,
feels when you're down, right? It's like
yeah,
when you're not feeling like doing shit, and you feel like, oh, email, call California lady, or get whippets and watch TV.
mm.
Ooh, that third one's sounding really good. That sounds like a really promising option there.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I agree. It's
So as far as
a fucking struggle.
applying your decision made will towards self growth, it it really seems to me most self growth comes through self acceptance, and
Mm,
only a little bit of self growth comes through self kicking in the ass.
fair point. Yeah, yeah. And I think I, generally speaking, need that reminder because kicking myself in the ass is just oh so easy to do.
Well, and the TE people of the world project it out as an absolute value onto the world that it's a good thing to have more goals, be more productive, um, you know, be have better follow through, be be more high achieving all the time and stuff like that. There's no actual reason for people to accept that as an absolute value to attain, right? It's like I'm stuck in the same place. I value myself very much according to my level of productivity. And when I'm not being productive and I'm being slothy and I'm being gluttonous, I I sometimes will kick myself in the ass, but more often I'll be like, no, 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 don't think about that. Don't think about that. Just don't think about that. You know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, either way, I guess at the end of the day, it's kind of coming from a place of like, yeah, lacking a little bit in self compassion
Well,
for where you actually are.
here's the deal. ENTPs, INFJs, we're the most adult adults in some regard.
Mm,
And we're the most childish children at the same time.
mm-hmm.
And so it's like when you're talking about something like who's correct about typology or whatever, or what's the correct or best mapping or understanding or words or description of this thing, then we're often the only adults in the room, you know, along with the INTPs. But but they're usually just shitting on whatever we're saying anyway. The INFJ is just being quiet because they don't want their NI to be deconstructed by the INTP, and the ENTP's running afoul of yet another. Okay, but parse out this node ENTP by the INTP. You know, and you go, oh, for fuck's sake. And of course, nothing ever gets accomplished. But
Right.
compared to the conversations of other people about the same subject, we're clearly the only adults in the room, right? So,
Yeah.
the consequence of that is in as a trade-off that in terms of our sensory practical selves, we are hopeless, darling little children.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not wrong. Awesome.
All right, cool.
Thank you so much for your time, host Eric. I appreciate it. Do you prefer to be called host Eric or just Eric?
No, I don't care. Most people don't call me host Eric. When they do, I think they're trying to be like Effie, you know?
Yeah. Well, I've heard you call yourself that, and I don't know. It's
I
just
used to
curious.
care. I used to like it when people called me host
Yeah.
Eric. I definitely used to like it. Now it doesn't. It doesn't even like register really very
Yeah.
much what they say whether they host Eric or Eric unless somebody asks like that. In which case, I'm just used to being called whatever they call me. You know, I don't know.
Well, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure talking to
It
you.
was a pleasure talking to you too. Before I go, are you okay with me publishing this, or do you want me to share it with you first privately so you can review it?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind sharing it with me privately first, that would be terrific.
Okay, no problem. I've stopped
Thank you.
recording.